Hi everyone. Um, Sorry for being late. I was in the process of starting up the project. Got caught up with a couple of client work items, and was just a couple of bugs I couldn't fix. So I was just rushing to finish fixing those bugs for my other client project, before I came on here. So I've got a couple of updates with the stream that I'm very happy to share. So, firstly, if you previously, you guys came in and you would drop chats, right? But if I'm talking and stuff, then the chats would get missed out. So I have actually added notifications to our stream. So now if you were to type a message in chat, there will be a little ping that I'll get, and you will hear the ping on the stream as well. And this will help me to communicate with you guys, when coding. Otherwise, if a chat comes in and it's missed, then I can see why some of you will be upset and leave. So do drop us a chat, drop me a chat. There'll be a notification on my side, and you will hear on the stream as well. You'll hear a little jingle, and that will be my cue to check the chat and see what questions you have. So in the meantime, I'm opening Unity. Just give me a moment. And once that is done, then I will get started. So today is I'm gonna be looking into how to rework the enemy spawning system. We are done with the stats, we are done with the weapons. So next would be getting the enemies to spawn in more dynamic ways, with we want to look into how we can create different patterns of enemies, like you have the ring of plants and all that stuff, right? So that is gonna require a fair bit of planning. So I'm not sure how today is gonna go, but we will just have to dive into the project and see how things pan out. Let me just pin a message. So you guys can see the chat, right? It's a little, oh god, it's a little I'm sorry, it's a little disjointed, but you can see your chat will appear on the screen. There should be a little sound effect as well, but that's not very apparent, unfortunately. Okay, we'll work out this system, make it better as we go along. So you hear the ding, and if I were to pin this chat, then this will appear on stream as well. Let me just pin this. I'm new to streaming, alright, so gotta bear with me for a little while. I'm having a little bit of fun playing with this thing. So if I pin the message, it should appear on the stream as well, but unfortunately it doesn't seem like it's appearing. Okay, at least the chat is appearing, right? So, okay, I'm gonna get started with the coding. The Unity is ready. So currently we are working on creating 2 new videos. One is of course the part 18 video. I hope you've been enjoying the part 18 article. Is free right now. Let me just jump over and show this to you. So the article is free right now. It's gonna be free until the video is out. The video latest probably is gonna be out end of next week. And we have one more particle effect video that's gonna roll along as well. And we're also gonna create just a whole bunch of general Unity tutorial videos. So you can look out for that as well, because as we just work on our series, if you notice over the past couple of streams that I've made, we've covered, you know, sometimes I answer questions and they're relevant questions for developers, right? We're gonna just fish out these footages and then we're just gonna put it on YouTube. I'm gonna package it into something that you know, you don't, so that you don't have to jump in a coding stream to find all these answers to your questions, right? Okay, so you will know it when you see it. We'll just be spending more time creating more generalized Unity tip videos as well, and I think that's gonna be helpful for the general developer as well, who maybe they know what they want to do, but you know, they still maybe have bad habits, or if they don't understand certain coding concepts and whatnot. Okay, so enough talk. Let's jump into our project. So in the last stream, this is where we left off. We had a stat window that shows you all the stats the player has, and of course if your stat changes, then okay, let me just show you the stats changing. All right, I'm gonna change. If I change the stats of my character, for example area, this will make the yeah. And then you have of course speed, and you have amount that increases the number of weapons you throw out. You have as well cooldown. Wow, this is really cool, huh? What else? Okay, let's look at the X. The X looks pretty cool. So anyway, so these are the things we've done in the last stream. If you change the stats of the player, this will change how your weapons behave, right? And this is actually supposed to be the job of your passives. But you know, we have made it so that, you know, you can adjust the stats in the editor as well, and this will change the player stats. Of course, when you level up, this will reset your stats, provided you pick the passive. Otherwise, you will just continue to this is a little funny, huh? So if you pick a passive, then everything gets reset, you know, and then of course the stats will become regular. So anyway, if you change the stats, the values over here as well, then you'll see the stat window here change. And if I add new stats, the stat window is just going to update itself. We don't have to go in there and modify the UI for every stat that we change. So now our player stat system is very robust and very easy to adjust, very modular, if I can say so myself. So on the player side of things, really everything is pretty much set. If you want to learn how to create more weapons, we will release a couple more articles on the forums and whatnot, and then you can, from there you can see how, let's say if you have any, if you want to know how to create certain weapons but you don't know how to do it, just give us a post on the forums. I will spend some time. I'll put the code together for you, because the codes for new weapons are not going to be very hard now with our new system. Same with passives and whatnot. Okay, so the next thing we want to make easier to use is our enemy spawning system. So right now, the enemy spawning system works, but as with our weapon system previously, it can be better. So then I will spend this stream figuring out. I haven't looked at this project since last week after I created the footage for part 18. So we will spend some time looking at this. And hopefully at the end of this stream, and probably I'll need a couple of streams, we will find something that works, and then yeah, from there we will have more robust enemy spawning system. I'm aware there are some other requests as well. There's a request to implement gold coins. We can do that, but we will have to also implement like a bonus system outside of the game, which that is the hard part, right? So the gold coin doesn't just come by itself. So the gold coin system, or the bonus outside of the game bonus, we will have to leave that until we finish the enemy spawning system. I'm hoping to finish the enemy spawning system in the next 1 or 2 months, and then we can move on to bigger things. So okay, there was a new chat. Hi Qiutian. Looks like my notification sound is not loud enough. So the next stream I'm gonna have to make it louder so I can hear that ding when a message comes in. Okay, if I still miss your messages, I'm sorry. I promise to check every 30 minutes. Alright, this is gonna be a more chill stream, so I can afford to just jump in and check the chat every now and then. Usual thanks for tuning in and supporting. It means a lot to me. It's 10 p.m. in Singapore, right? So I'm sure if you're Asian, it's nighttime over here for you as well. So thanks for joining me. Okay, I'm just gonna look through the code. I actually don't know how the enemy spawning system works because I didn't watch the rest of the tutorials, you know. I just jumped in and started creating the new weapon system. So let's look further into how the enemy spawner works. I'm gonna just read through the code. Okay, so the enemy spawner. So usually when I have a piece of code that I don't know what's going on in the code, what I like to do is I'll just start writing comments in the code, and this will help me to understand what is going on. So when it comes to reading Unity code, especially, right, if it's a mono behavior, first thing I usually look at is two methods: the start function and the update function, because the update function especially just tells you what this particular component does most of the time. So I'll look for those events. If there's no start or there's no update, I'll look for other events like on enable, on disable. These are the next most important ones. I mean, you have all the variables and stuff that you can look through, but you have to make sense of the variables in the context of the script, which is why the update function comes first. And what the update function does essentially is the update function here, a couple of things going on here. Let me just read through. If current wave count is less than wave count, and current wave count is equals to, the spawn count is equals to 0, and its wave active is false. So I'm just gonna write a comment here. If we have finished all the waves in the game, and if the current wave has also finished spawning itself. So this tells me that the code over here, what it's doing is, just from this chunk of code alone, this tells me quite a number of things. It tells me that there are a limited number of waves. So if you look at the enemy spawner over here, we have 10 waves, right? So how the enemy spawner works is that whenever first it looks through the waves over here, and then here, let's say we have how many waves is that? This is 16 waves, right? So we have 16 waves. So the enemies will stop spawning after all the waves have been used up. And For every wave, there are groups of enemies that can spawn. So over here, what's happening is that every wave, okay, I'm not very sure how the enemy waves are being spawned. So for every wave, there's a maximum number of enemies that can be spawned. And then once all the enemies in the wave are spawned, then we move on to the next wave. This is what these lines tell me. Okay, I'm sure if you follow our series, you will know the code better than I am, better than I do. So yeah, just bear with me for a while there while I read through the code. So over here we have the spawn timer. The spawn timer just increases every frame. And then if the spawn timer is greater than the spawn interval, then we reset the spawn timer and then we spawn enemies. So what this chunk of code tells me is that there will be a spawn timer that is always counting up. And then it counts up until it reaches spawn interval. So for example, if I'm in wave number 1, it means that every 3 seconds enemies will spawn. Every 3 seconds enemies will spawn. So they keep spawning and spawning and spawning until we run out of enemies to spawn. So let's look at how the rest of the spawner works as well. So when it's time to spawn the next wave of enemies, spawn enemies will trigger. And then over here again, we are checking if the spawn count is greater than the wave quota. So we have this max enemies reached variable as well, which I'm not sure what it does. The maximum number of enemies allowed on the map at once. So there is a limit to the number of maximum enemies as well. And then if the maximum number of enemies is reached, even if it's time for the wave to spawn another enemy, the enemies will still not spawn. So let me just write this down in comments. Check if the minimum number of enemies in the wave have been spawned. So every time, okay, let's just look at the enemy spawner as we play the game, and then we can kind of see how this works. So every time, notice that every time enemy spawns, the spawn count here increases. And same thing happens here. So now there are 2 beds, 3 beds, and then there are, I think gonna be 4 beds later. Oh, we moved to wave number 2 already, huh? Why is that? Max enemies allowed is 100, enemies alive is 5. Current wave count is 1. Did it start from 0? So now it's on the 3rd wave. Because current wave count is 2. Spawn count is 3. Spawn count here is 3 as well. Spawn count here is 2. Yeah, wave number 4 now. And here we have when do we advance the next wave? I think that's the question that I... So what I was trying to do was I was trying to look at the enemy spawner here and look at how it updates. And from there, I'm trying to figure out how it works. but I'm not able to figure out when the waves move from 1 to 2. So we are going to just read through the code here. Minimum number of waves have been spawned. When does the wave count increase? Wave count, current wave count, when does it increase? It increases when begin next wave is called. Okay, let's rerun this again and we will see. Spawn count is 0. So when we're on the first wave, right? Current wave count here is 0, enemies alive is 1. I just don't understand how it goes from wave 1 to wave 2. That's my problem now. So if you have any idea about what I'm stuck at right now, feel free to leave a message in the chat. Otherwise, just give me 10 or 15 minutes, I'll figure this out. Spawn count is 0 and is wave active is false. Is wave active. So begin next wave is the one that's looping here. Update, calls begin next wave, and then this code routine runs. Oh, okay, I got it now. So enemy spawner actually works in quite a unique way, I guess. Because okay, so how this works is that when a wave starts, it'll keep spawning enemies until either the count is reached, meaning let's say if enemy count here is 5 and I reach 5, right, it stops spawning enemies. So if I were to increase the wave interval here, you will see I only get 5 enemies. Okay, so if I increase the wave interval, this will change how the waves are spawning. So the first wave of enemies will spawn, and once it finishes, it will just wait for 60 seconds before the next interval, before the next series of enemies spawn. So now because all the 5 enemies have spawned, we have to wait until 60 seconds are over before the next wave spawns. So, well, that is how the enemy spawner works. So every wave, we have the waves over here, which lets us define the enemies we want to spawn. And then we have, so this spawns enemies every 3 seconds. Once all the enemies are spawned, we have to wait for an interval of 60 seconds before we move on to the next wave, which makes it a little hard to use. When I was using the enemy spawner, I found it a little bit hard to use. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a new spawner script, and then we're gonna just implement more user-friendly ways. Of course, this works very well. This works very well for our purposes, but Vampire Survivors is pretty complicated mechanism, so we will have to improve upon the system if we want to create, you know, like patterns of enemies and all that stuff. So let's jump into the Vampire Survivors wiki, and then let's see if we can find some information about the algorithms. This is called doing research. Enemies normally arrive in waves, one wave every minute. Each wave specifies a minimum amount and a spawn interval for the enemies. If the minimum amount is not met when the game attempts to spawn enemies, enemies will spawn until the quota is filled. What is the dairy plant? It's a level, right? Perhaps before we look at the spawning, we can also look at enemy stats. Or should we look at the spawning first? Okay, I think actually this code here captures whatever's in Vampire Survivors pretty well. Because enemies arrive in waves, one wave every minute. Each wave specifies a minimum amount and a spawn interval for the enemies. The minimum amount is not met. When the game attempts to spawn enemies, enemies will be spawned until the quota is filled. Are you aware of the enemies spawning in Vampire Survivors? Okay, ChatGPT can't help us here. Let's try Copilot on Bing. Vampire Survivors, enemies spawning algorithm. Oh, there's actually code that we can look at in Vampire Survivors. Huh? Let me see if we can find install folder. Wonder where my Vampire Survivors game is installed actually. Vampire Survivors. Let me just log on to Steam and see if we can find the source files, and from there we can see how the enemies will spawn, and then this can give us a better idea of how we can improve upon our enemy spawner. So upon closer inspection, I don't think we have to recall the enemy spawner, but we can definitely improve upon it. And you're just gonna give me some time to churn up something cool that we can put together. Let me just find the source files for this game. Where is it? Installed files. Wow, it's 1 GB. For a game with just sprites, it's unusually large. So it's under, which folder is it under? main.bundle.js. Resources, and then there is a webpack renderer. Oh, there's nothing here. Look for forest or library. Gosh, nothing here. Resources, webpack. I think they hid the source file for the game. Oh, do you guys notice something? Vampire Survivors is built in Unity. Gosh. I didn't know that. How did I know that it's built in Unity? Because Unity player, and then there's Unity crash handler. So this tells me that the game was built in Unity. So it's just perfect, right? That our tutorial is on Unity as well. Just don't know where the data for the levels is. Resources. Is it here? Main bundle JS. Okay, I'm not finding anything. Never mind, we will just come up with something ourselves then. Okay, so I've got a rough idea. So what I'm thinking of is how to make this system easier to use. So I will probably be messing with the variables a little bit here. And the first thing I'm gonna do is I am gonna turn the wave data into scriptable objects. This will make it possible for us to reuse the waves. So let's perhaps I should also just create an article to document all my changes so that this makes it easier for me to create new content later on. I think upgrading the enemy spawn system. So by turning it into a scriptable object, we can in future make the waves, everything and everything more complex. Like, you know, spawning enemies and shapes and stuff. We will accommodate for that in due time. Okay, this wave here, I'm just gonna move it out. So this will go to where's scriptable objects? Enemy scriptable objects here. This map is here. Then we have weapons, right? Okay, let's put the wave data right here. Let me just yeah, let's create the script here. Wave data. So the wave data is gonna be a substitute for this wave that we have. Later we're gonna replace this wave class with the wave data. So again, what we are doing here is we're trying to make this entire system. Right now it's great. It's following how Vampire Survivors works. We just want to make it more robust. Robust meaning it can accommodate more situations and more kinds of spawns. And we also want to make it more easy to use. So right now it's a little confusing. So if we just reorganize the variables a little bit, we can make it with anything that you create, right? Especially with scripts and all that stuff, right? The best kind of component is the component that when you look at how the components variables are like in the inspector, right away you know how it works. So right now when I look at enemy spawner, even though it works well, and it works the way that Vampire Survivors, the spawner inside works, it takes me a while to figure out how it works. So that's where the problem is. So that's what we want to fix, alright? So I want to reduce the number of variables in the inspector while still keeping the functionality. This makes the whole thing easier to use. So this is wave data is going to be a scriptable object. So we will have to find a new place to file it. So let me just open enemy scriptable object. Later we'll revamp the enemies as well if we have the time. So here this will be us getting to, right, improving upon enemy spawn. So we are creating a wave data scriptable object. Let's call this wave data. And then this will be under, let's see, we have a couple of the weapon data is here. So let's just copy the menu name here, and let's call this wave data. So we'll just start with everything inside the wave over here, and then we will see what to shave off or what to add. So wave data is here. This will be, of course, a scriptable object. We don't need to import these two things here. We just need the engine. Okay, here's whenever you see this thing, these are gray, and you can just delete them. Alright, it means the library is not needed. So I'm gonna remove the wave name, not necessary, because we have the file name there already. And do we need enemy groups here? A list of enemy groups. What is this enemy group? And where? Oh, enemy group is here. Okay, so when we spawn the enemy, right? You know what? I'm just gonna, instead of having an array of enemy groups, let's just use enemy stat. And then this can be the prefab, right? Okay, because over here is a list, so we have to use using system collections start. Is that it? There we go. System collections generic. Okay, so then we get to use the list. A list of groups. Oh wait, we can just use an array here because this is gonna be modified in the editor, right? So this will be enemies, enemy types. So this will be enemy type prefix. Enemy types. Enemy types, fine. Is there a wave quota? I don't think there is a wave quota, right? Okay, I'm gonna put in some default values as well. So in Vampire Survivors, there isn't any wave quota per se, but you know, again, just to make the system robust, we can just max value this. So then the wave quota is always going to be a large number. Let's just call this quota. We might not want to have spawn count be public because this makes it so that it's confusing, right? So we just want to have the attributes that we can modify. So for the spawn count, perhaps we can make it hidden in the inspector, but we make it public, right? Okay, so for those of you who are wondering what's going on, I'm externalizing I'm improving upon the enemy spawner, and right now I'm trying to turn all the wave data into a scriptable object so that we can just create new waves over here. So the idea is for us to be able to go to scriptable objects, and then after that we can create a new folder called waves or wave data. Alright, and then inside this wave data we can have the wave data for our entire game. Alright, so where is the wave data? It's not here, which means my code is probably oh, this should be wave data, right? My bad. Okay, there we go. So we want the waves to all be stored as scriptable objects. The reason for that is because wave data can be reused. So then, you know, like if we store the assets under wave data, it makes it easier for us to manage and reuse the assets instead of, you know, if we just put it inside the enemy spawner, we have to retype everything. So if you want to use the same wave, like say we want to have bats in wave 1 and then maybe wave 5 or wave 10 we want to have bats again, it's going to be harder for us to do. But then if we have scriptable objects, then these become reusable, so then we can, you know, just reuse the enemies. So then I've changed it so that we can just plonk the prefabs inside here. So I can, let me just pin this. If I want to have, say, the bats, I can just drop the bats inside here. Okay, so later on I'm also gonna make it so that enemies are gonna be using, because right now we have enemy scriptable objects and enemies, right? So we are gonna fix that. So either we use prefabs or we use the asset files, the scriptable object files. We're not gonna have one set of scriptable objects and one prefab, because that is gonna make everything messy. So let's work out how the wave data is gonna be. We have quota here, we have interval. Let's introduce some restrictions here as well. Okay, let's do a minimum and 0. So this makes it so that the interval cannot reduce below 0. Same thing, minimum 0. So we can't reduce the values below 0. Same thing here. I can't put a negative value. Quota actually shouldn't be 0, it should be 1. That's the minimum, right? But that's just me being a stickler. And what else can we store inside the wave data? Let's see. Can we store max enemies allowed? Okay, so over here we have wave interval, right? Let's store this inside the scriptable object. Let's store this inside the scriptable object. I'm just gonna have a duration as well. So then we have inside the scriptable object for the waves, we have duration. The duration is just how long the wave will last. Yeah, we do need enemy groups, right? Let's see. As enemy groups here as well, we probably need this. Of course, we need to store the weight as well. Okay, let's copy enemy group here as well. Let's just call this spawn, alright? Anyway, this doesn't matter what this class. Doesn't matter what this class is named. I just thought enemy group was confusing because enemy group implies that multiple enemies are being spawned, but that may not be the case. We don't need enemy name. Here we have the prefab. Okay, let's see how this looks. So instead of having enemy types here, this should be a spawn array and spawns. So inside spawns here, we have, let's say, element 0, and then we have enemy, and then whatever is here. So here I'm setting a minimum weight of 1 so that because if weight is 0 then so weight is basically the probability that the enemy will be spawned in this wave. So what spawns is gonna be is it's gonna contain a list of all enemies that can spawn. And then the spawn percentage will be determined by the weight. So for example, if we have a certain wave where we have 3 different types of enemies that are spawning, so you can set different weights to the enemies to control how often each enemy spawns. So the higher the weight, the more often it spawns. And I'm thinking about whether there are any other attributes that that I can add into the wave data. I can probably use a U integer here and a U integer here. U integer allows me to get a larger value of the integer. Anyway, I'll show you this later in the right here. Let me just reset the value. So now max spawns is a higher value. So max spawns can go all the way below because it's not that important really. So I'm thinking maybe I can add some tooltips to the attributes as well, just to describe more clearly what each attribute does. Okay, let's add a tooltip here. This will be list of all possible enemies that can spawn. This way. And I think the tooltips will be very helpful. And then here we will have tooltip. Let's separate the interval and duration. Minimum 0.1 f. How long between the first? How long between each spawn? So for the interval here, I'm putting an x and a y, so this will give you a minimum, maximum. I don't know if there's a better way to do that, because maybe I can use bounce. Bounce work. Bounce is 4 values though, so it's not the best. Yeah, so bounce here has no, yeah, bounce doesn't work. So this. What can I use to express a range? What struct? Range. There is a range struct. I guess we will just use a vector 2 for now. How long to wait between each spawn? Or we can create a struct for it. Maybe let's just do that. Serializable. Okay, not a good idea actually. Never mind. Let's just use vector 2. So then this will give us a minimum value, maximum value. Spawns every 3 seconds, enemy type. Vampire Survivors Team Word Pack. Let's use a vector 2 here, and then this will give us allow us to key in a range of numbers. So if I have interval with a vector 2 here, this will give me 1 to 2 seconds between each spawn. Oh, let's do 2 to 3 seconds, since that would be more in line with what the game has. And duration is just how long the wave lasts. Let's call this wave duration to make it more descriptive. And then this will be how long before this wave ends. Spawn count we can just ignore for now. How long in seconds this wave will spawn enemies for. Maximum spawn. How many enemies? And then let's create a end condition as well. So what you want to do again is, because you want to make the wave data very customizable, right? I'm just gonna create a enumeration, and then from the enumeration what we're gonna do is we are going to allow ourselves to control how we want the wave to end. So let me just brighten my screen. I don't know why all of a sudden it became very dark, my screen. Let's modify the screen brightness. There we go. So let's do an enumeration and condition. Oh, come on, it's giving me the wrong stuff. Let me just check the item script. And that was what we did for our weapon evolution. So if you recall, sometimes ChatGPT is not very smart, unfortunately. So we have a condition over here, there is enumeration, and then user system flag. So this will be system flags. And then the end condition will be time. What else? Max spawn. So what I'm going for here is essentially, let me just show you. Alright, I'm just gonna put everything in one line, save some space. Let's call this exit condition. And then over here we have public exit condition. Exit condition. So what we are going for here is we want to be able to have a drop down where we set all the exit conditions that the wave will have. So for example here, exit condition, by default this should be everything, or this should be time, right? Which means that after the duration ends, it exits. But we can select, you know, a whole bunch of exit conditions for ourselves. Like for example, let's add a couple of things. We need a flag here. Exit condition will be time or max spawns. Yeah, this works. And then duration, max spawns, fulfill, must fulfill minimum. Okay, let's see how this looks like. Alright, so what we have here is we'll have a couple of conditions that we can select. So this is when the wave ends. By default ends by duration, but you can make it end when max spawns are fulfilled as well, or like when the minimum is fulfilled. So if we check, for example, duration and must fulfill minimum, then what's going to happen is that once the duration expires, the minimum must also be fulfilled before this ends. So this is just a way for us to set a whole bunch of flags for ourselves, and then we can expand upon this condition list as we go along. Okay, just give me a moment. I'm gonna quickly run to the washroom. My bladder is exploding. I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. Let's continue working out our wave data. So I'm thinking about how to design, how to structure this exit condition thing over here. Exit condition, duration reached, max box. What I'm thinking of right now is we might want to have two options. So I'm thinking whether we should put must fulfill minimum inside, and there are two ways that these two conditions can interact with each other. It can be and or it can be or. So I'm thinking about how to structure this. Oh, we don't need must fulfill minimum inside actually. Wave, let's just wave duration, max spawns. We don't need must fulfill minimum. So we can just over here have put it, when should this set things that can trigger the end of this wave. So I'm gonna just drop this here. This will be reverse of 0, which means that this will be everything. Why doesn't this work? Exit conditions. Okay, there we go. So what this will do is that the default value will be everything. Alright. So if I reset this, this will give me everything. So the wave will end either when the wave duration is met or max spawns is met. Which means wave duration cannot be 0, so let's set a default value of 60 over here. 60 seconds, right? And then how many waves, how many enemies this wave can spawn at maximum, and how many okay, let's see, if we mouse over we get two tips like that, which is great. So then we have max spawns and then we have minimum spawns as well, right? Let's call this spawn interval so that it's more descriptive. Spawn interval, wave duration, max spawns, exit condition. If value is non-zero, then wave cannot exit until spawns are met. So here we go. So here what we have is we're offering a couple of ways to configure our wave. So this will just be 0 by default. Yo, check. Yeah, we're not the type to play games, to stay clean. Came to show the moving like a freight train, breaking walls, it crumble earth with every step we take. So now we have something going on here. So we have spawns, we have exit condition, spawn interval. Let's move exit condition down. So exit condition. It's a revolution. Okay, let's look at the wave data again. Wave data. So now we have spawn interval and then we have exit condition. This controls when the spawn ends. And I think these are all the attributes we need. So it can end when duration is reached, in which case you select this, or it can end when max spawns is reached. So by default this selects both. So for example, if I set max spawns 30 and wave duration is 60, what this means is that the wave will end either when the wave duration hits 60 or when the max spawns hits 30. So if I don't want the wave to end when, say, 30 enemies are spawned, then I can I can disable this. So then this will make the wave only move forward after the only after the wave duration, only after 60 seconds is over. So if I want to set to max spawns, then what happens is that this only happens when only when the enemies are all spawned. I thought about something else. Just thought of something. Let me just put that together as well. So I thought about as well this. Set the things that can trigger the end of this wave. We have one more thing as well. We don't need a tooltip for this. Let's just do this. Must kill all. Okay, let's add a tooltip. In addition to the above condition, all enemies must also be dead before the wave to advance. So just an extra condition over here. If the boolean here is true, it means that you gotta kill all enemies to advance the wave as well. So this would be exit. Condition. Exit settings. These will be spawn settings, right? Okay, I'm just renaming everything to make everything nicer to read. So we have spawn settings, we have exit conditions, and under exit conditions here we have conditions, and then this will be whatever's here. So a little bit more robust. Next, let's configure the enemy groups here. So we have weight, and we have just this is the prefab that spawn. We don't need the rest of the settings, right? So we have spawn count, which is it's used by the script, it's not used by us, so we don't have to worry about that. But enemy count, maybe we can integrate it in. Let's see if we should. Okay, for now, let's leave it as it is actually. Okay, let's work this into our code first. Let's add one more attribute here called spawns per tick. And then this will be 1 and 1. This will be a vector2 integer. How many enemies spawn simultaneously per interval? So this would be 1 and 1, so 1 enemy. But if we want to have a range of 1 to 2, for example, we can do that as well. And I think that's about it, right? So let's create a couple of functions as well that we can use from wave data to retrieve the enemies and whatnot. So hello, no one. Nice to see you. I've got to make my notification louder for the chat. I'm missing all your chats. I'm so sorry. How many enemies spawn per interval? So we have enough. I'm thinking whether we want to add the enemy count here. So if we want to add that, then we will have to add a maximum spawns. Okay, let's call this again, let's make this more descriptive. Possible spawns. Okay, let's keep things simple. Yeah, let's just have possible spawns, and then we have the spawn settings and everything. And let's just start with one item. So then when you start the list, you have one element that you can fill up. It's a small victory. Okay, I think that's all that we need. So let's call this say bat wave 1. So let's head over to enemy spawner now, and okay, let me just copy and paste the code here, creating a new wave data scriptable object. So now we have to go back to enemy spawner, and then we can retool this to use the wave data scriptable object as opposed to using the wave object here. So instead of deleting everything right away, I am gonna create a new variable here called data. This will be an array. We don't have to use a list. This will be an array of wave data. So you see, instead of having you know, like a array of waves, we can just add wave data like that, and then we can just drop it. So then if you have if you want to have multiple waves of the same thing, you can do something like that. So let's say you want to have bad wave 1, bad wave 2, bad wave 3, bad wave 1, bad wave 2, bad wave 3. You can do that. Okay, so this data allows us to have more flexibility. Instead of having, you know, to enter everything by hand like that, we can save the data separately outside. So in the future, with the wave data that we have, we can also create special patterns, like for example, circular patterns and whatnot, which we will come to in time. So by having wave data here, we can expand upon this scriptable object in the future. That's what I'm trying to say. So let's just work with this first. Let's go to enemy spawner and let's update it so that we figure out how to use the wave data to run the enemy spawner. Player stats. Why is there a player here? Relative. There's a relative spawn point. Relative spawn points are here. Okay, this is interesting. We have relative spawn points for the enemy spawner. And this controls where the enemy appears, right? Okay, let's use the relative spawn points first. What does calculate wave quota do? This calculates how many enemies need to be there, right? So what we can do is we can just handle everything and update actually. And then we can always just spawn the enemies outside of the camera's viewpoint. Okay, let's work this out. So we're gonna just update the update function. And the first current wave count is definitely needed. But maybe let's not make it public. Okay, let's clean up the variables a bit because otherwise things can get very messy. Let's just leave only the ones that we need, which means we leave current wave count. Let's remove the update function as well. And okay, let's just clean up the entire script. And then we'll just figure everything out. Again, all this function when enemy execute. spawn timer. Then we add time, got the other time. And if spawn timer, sorry, this should be minus. And then if spawn timer is less than 0, or it's less than or equals to 0, then we will check data over here. I'm gonna call this current wave index. Current wave index. And perhaps it's, let me just copy this code over to a new script. Might be better because we are rewriting the entire script, right? So maybe we can keep the enemy spawner for reference. It's gonna do everything here, and I've already copied the script, so I'm gonna go over to hi Bharat, nice to see you. I'm gonna go over to let's recreate the enemy spawner script. So I'm gonna create a new script here. I'm gonna call it spawn manager, or we can call it wave manager. It's really let's see, let's call this spawn manager, and we can just drop the code, the new code here. So that way we don't overlap, right? Because it's totally different script anyway. And I'm gonna label the spawn manager as obsolete. Replaced by spawn manager. So now I can I can delete stuff without feeling any anxiety, you know. So because it's a whole new thing. So let's call this, let's just call this wave index. Our current wave index is fine. And then here spawn update spawn time and reframe. And then here what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write a let's just comment this up. I'm gonna write a function here that basically gives us get spawn position, or let's call it generate position. So this will just give us a place where we can place the enemy. Creates a new location where we can place the enemy at. So this will be vector 2. And what generate position does is we can just get the camera bounce. Okay, let's go to ChatGPT. Camera viewport to world point. Let's call this a reference. So what I'm gonna do is, instead of creating arbitrary spawn points, we just use a reference camera, and from the reference camera we will determine, because the camera has boundaries by itself, right? You see that? So the camera has a boundary, so we're just gonna use the camera boundaries over here to determine where the location of the what am I saying? To determine where the boundaries of the map are. So enemies only spawn outside the camera boundaries. So then we don't have to put, we don't have to put a whole bunch of reference points. Like if you see here, we have like a circle of spawn points, right? We no longer have to do that. So thinking about how to explain this later on when I write the article, it's gonna be pretty hard to explain, right? So we get a reference camera here, and if reference camera is null, then we will set reference camera to be equals to camera dot make. If there is no reference camera, then get otherwise we will generate a position outside of the camera. Let's also print out some error messages as well. Give a warning if the camera is not orthographic. If reference camera projection matrix. What is this projection matrix? No, it's not projection matrix. What we want is this thing over here. We want the camera to be orthographic. So projection equals to camera type. Okay, this is not what we want. I want to get the orthographic or whatever, orthographic or perspective. I don't know where is that. Orthographic. Oh, okay. We have orthographic here, right? If reference camera is not orthographic, then we will drop a warning. The reference camera is not orthographic. This will cause enemy sometimes appear within camera boundaries. So then what we want is we want the new spawn system to always spawn an enemy outside of the camera boundaries. So once we make sure that the camera is orthographic and we make sure a reference camera is set, then we can just generate a position for the enemy to be placed in. So generate position outside of camera boundaries. So we want the camera to be, or rather we want the enemy to be spawn anywhere outside of camera boundaries, right? So I'm thinking of what formula. Let's just ask Chat. Generate a random point on the camera boundary formula. Oh, this is interesting. This is one way to do it. And I use polar projection instead. So angle equals to random range math pi times 2. Hello Binos, thanks for popping in. Oh, I've got an idea actually. We don't need angles anymore. Generate a position outside the camera boundary. So what we want to do is screen position, and this will be just a new vector tool with a random value between 0 and 1 for both the x value and the y value. So once we have this, we can just randomly, because so if we want to have a point in the screen boundaries, right? So this means that it's going to be anywhere along the edge of the rectangle. So it's either going to be here, 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 or here, which means that the x and y, either the x or the y value has to be 0 or 1, which makes everything, because over here this is 0 and 1 for x, and then 0 and 1 for y will be like that. So we just have to generate a random number, and then we just have to randomly pick whether we want to round off the x or the y value. So generate a random using two random numbers, then randomly choose whether we want to round the x or the y value. So over here, this would be if random.range zero, 1, 0, 2. So this will give me a value between 0 and 1, right? So let's just do a switch. So case 0, we will do let's do float x. And then y. So we just generate two random floats. And then if over here the case is 0, we will do case 0 default. This is just to capture any other edge cases. Case 0 default, this will be vector 2, screen position, new vector 2, x, y, and then we will round the x value here. Vector 2, screen position. So for case number 1, instead we will do the opposite, we'll round the y value. So this means we always end up with a position at the edge of the screen. I mean, in the future, if circular screens are invented or screens of different shapes, then we will have to change our code, but for now, this is good. So because this returns a vector 2, we can just return this result. Actually, it means we don't have to do anything special. So let's just check with ChatGPT to see whether this only has 2 cases. This only has 2 cases, right? Okay, so what I wanted to do was to make the logic here as simple as possible, and I think I managed to achieve that. So let's go back here. So spawn timer is less than 0, we will spawn enemy, right? So spawns and enemy. Possible spawns. So then we will need a get possible spawn as well on the wave data. Yeah, possible spawn. So this returns an array of prefabs that this wave can spawn. Possible spawns. Determine how many enemies spawn. And then we do a for loop. And here we just start getting the prefabs that we want to spawn. So spawns. Generate the result. This will be game object array result. New game object. Oh. So possible spawns here, and this will be
Player 1, press start. You're now listening to Romance. Player 1 has entered the game. I'm Swaglord, your personal assistant. Please press start to begin.
picks one of the possible spawns, inserts it into the result array. And then we return the result here. So on the spawn manager here, we just have to determine how many get the spawns that we should have. Get the array of enemies that we are spawning for this tick. So this will be data current wave index. Get possible spawns. So once we have the possible spawns, we just have to look through and spawn all the prefabs. For each game object, prefab and spawns, we spawn the prefab and we get generate position, and then the rotation will be just 0, right? So this will be quaternion identity. So there we have it. We have a simple spawning system now. So if we just remove everything else, okay, we shouldn't have any errors over here. Let's grab the enemy spawner and we will disable this, and let's test out the new spawn manager. Over here, just one wave, and that one wave is, let me just lock this. It's only bad wave, right? So actually, I don't have to. I can just find the bad wave here. So this bad wave is just let me just put a bat inside here. Pause this. And the prefabs. Let's put a bat here. So we want there to be two possible spawns, right? Bat and the red bat. Okay, so there's weightage here, which means okay, if there's weight, then this becomes a little bit more messy. You know what? Actually, we don't need the weightage, right? Reason for that is because if we want to have different numbers of if you want to have, let's say, a 75% chance of bats and then 25% chance of red bats, we can just do something like this. So we can just have more bats than we have red bats, and this will actually solve the weightage problem. So if we remove the weightage, we actually don't need the we don't need the enemy groups at all. So let me just remove the weightage then. So let's take away the spawn and let's keep things simpler. So possible spawns, let's just call this possible spawn prefabs to make things more clear that we should be putting prefabs inside here. And then we have to update the code accordingly, of course. So this will change the wave data so that we just gotta put in the enemies. So then what we have here is just possible spawn prefabs. Let's say I want to have say for every 3 bats I want to have 1 red bat, and I just do this. Yeah, and then spawn interval will be 2 to 3 seconds. I want 1 spawn every time. Wave duration is 60. There's no minimum and there's very large maximum. Exit condition is everything. Let's not care about that first. So let's check out how this works out for us. So then here we just have bat wave 1. Let's we don't need a reference camera. Let's see how this works. Oh goodness. So the spawn is happening every tick. So once the spawn timer hits 0, we will have that spawn timer be equals to data current wave index spawn interval. So here I'm gonna create another function just to generate or just to get a random number between the 2 values that we have. So this will be generate spawn interval. Get spawn interval. Get a random spawn interval between the min and max values. So this will return random.range. And then spawn interval x and spawn interval y. So then we have get spawn interval, then we can use this in spawn manager to get a spawn interval. So now my problem is the generate position thing is not working. Okay. This is because silly me, I've got to convert this to world coordinates, reference camera, view port. So we gotta convert the result to world positions. There was something I missed out just now. And our code should work. So now the enemies always come out from the edge of the map. Okay, not really, right? It's coming out. No, it's not coming out the edge of the map. What's going on? Means my math is wrong. Let's look at the spawn timer. So it comes out here. So this is correct. Okay, let's see where the next spawn is. I'm looking at the spawn timer here, yeah? It spawns at the side. This seems to be correct. And then this spawns at the side also. Everything seems very correct. Okay, let's try this again. Missing something perhaps. Comes from the edge of the map. This one doesn't come from the edge of the map, obviously. Oh, where's the next guy? Right here. He's here. And he teleport. He teleport what? Teleports here. So the new bat is here. Let's see next frame whether he teleports. Why do they always teleport? Is it because they automatically try and find a spawn point? Let's look at the enemy stats script. Let's disable the enemy stats, enemy movement scripts, and then we'll see whether they still teleport. So this can tell us which is the script that is giving us the issue. So without enemy movement, you see that the enemies will okay, not exactly. It doesn't always spawn at the edge of the map. It spawns at a spawn point. Very sure of that. So I've disabled enemy stats now. Let me see. So the culprit is the enemy stats script. So let's look at enemy stats. It is teleporting the enemies to the spawn points. What does return enemy do? Oh, so enemies have a despawn distance. That is what is. So if enemies go too far away from us, then there is a despawn. Oh, this is totally fine actually. This is great. So what a despawn distance does is it just moves the enemy back to the edge of the camera. Okay, let me just log down the codes that we have so far, and then we will move on. I have a rough idea of what I want to do with the spawn manager, but let's just document all of our stuff first. So we have wave data over here, right? This is used to store data about how the wave will spawn. And then we also have let's just leave these inside. Here we can add these data actually. So spawn manager. This is what we have so far. No more relative spawn points. Don't need the player as well. So this means we don't need the start function at the moment. This will be new spawn manager script. Create is capable of view data from our wave data script. Let's just drop the getter functions from here. And we label the old enemy spawner as obsolete. And then now we can head in and adjust the enemy stats script. Updating the enemy stats. Updating the despawning capability. So here we update the so the enemy stat script has a despawner that basically moves an enemy that's outside of the screen back around the player. So this makes it feel like, you know, the enemies are always there. It just teleports the enemy when they're outside of the camera, the screen. So what we want to do is for the despawn distance, right? We can actually calculate it dynamically by getting the width or the height of the screen. Can we? The spawn distance. Okay, before we do that, let me just update a bit of the spawn manager code. Spawn manager. We have generate position, right? Correct. Prefab. Is there a way to get a width and a height? Okay, for now, let's just push. So what I'm trying to fix here is I'm trying to get the enemy right now. It spawns at the boundary. I'm trying to push it outwards a little bit more. Okay, you know what? Let's do that later. It's okay. Let's work on the enemy stats first. If the enemy is too far away, then we return the enemy. And we can just change this to check the renderer. So there's actually this thing that you can do. You can just change this. SR is visible. This actually works as well. So only when the enemy leaves the radius do we return the enemy back. So let me just copy this. Enemy stats here. Enemy stats. C#. SR is visible. And return enemy will get a spawn point from the spawn manager, right? So this means we need to make this static and public, so then we can use it. And start. So we'll make, anyway we only have one spawn manager, right? So we'll make this if public static spawn manager instance. If instance so what I'm doing here is I'm making this static so that I can just head into the enemy stats here, and I can just, instead of doing all this stuff, I will just do a enemy spawn manager. And generate position. There we go. Let's make this thing here return a vector 3 instead of a vector 2.
I wish we could bring them back. Summer hangouts, sipping all night with the guitar strumming. It's getting late now. Can we do it all again tomorrow?
And then we're gonna change the way the enemies are counted as well. So instead of counting the enemies inside the spawn manager, we're just gonna count the enemies by using enemy stats, so that we don't have to deal with any more references to the enemy spawner. So we can remove the spawn distance. Player, we will update that later. And enemy data, we will do that later as well. So what we will have here is whenever an enemy spawns, let's declare a static integer like that. Oh. So this will be track the number of enemies on the screen. And then this would be whenever awake runs, because it only runs once, right? Whenever the game object spawns, it'll increase the count by 1. And then whenever an enemy is destroyed, we will just, instead of doing this, we will just do count minus minus. And then this allows us to count and track how many enemies are on the screen. Then we no longer need to, notify the enemy spawner and all that stuff. Some minor optimizations to the enemy stats script. We can also remove this one. So let me just document all the changes over here. Let's see. So this is removed. The spawn distance is removed. We add a new variable called count. And where else? So we'll mark this, and then this as well. What other changes? This is changed to SR is visible. And the last one is under return enemy, right? On destroy, sorry. On destroy, no longer have to do this. Instead, we will do this. Just count minus minus. And for return enemy, we remove these two lines. Further, we remove this line. And this will become spawn manager generate position. So because we make the this is wrong. I bet. Let's highlight this, and this shouldn't be cancelled. This should be here. And then let's go over to notice so that we use generate position above statically. This means we need to update the spawn manager function so that it becomes static. And for that, it's just all here, right? And this thing here, and this whole chunk here. Okay, I think that's about it for today. I've got to go off soon, but before we do that, let's just set this to some C# script, and let's test this out. The despawning shouldn't happen anymore. Once we get it working, and we can call it a day, and I'll see you for the next stream. Hello, Luis. Nice to see you. I hope that your farming RPG project is going well. So Luis has been creating his own variant of our farming RPG tutorial series. So he's using that series to create his own farming RPG game, and it looks wonderful. So it's in one of our, we've shared his project in one of our Patreon posts. So you can go and check it out. It looks really nice what he's done. You have now reference exception over here. Oh no, we don't. Okay, let's see if the spawn manager works properly now. Oh, now it's where's the bed now? Now they just keep getting despawned. This is the problem. This should be changed. This should be not visible, right? If SR not visible. So I've got a piece of code wrong. There should be a exclamation mark here. And this should fix the problem. The beds are still... Are they still teleporting around? The red beds seem to not spawn properly. The red bed's stuck here. Poor guy. Maybe instead of doing that, we can dynamically calculate a despawn distance. Would that work? Because it's visible, it's not very reliable. Why is it's visible not working for the red beds? It's hard to understand. And the red beds are always at the side of the screen, and they can't seem to become visible, you know. Well, because the enemy movement is not checked. There we go, that's why. Let's enable their movement then. Okay, I think our code works. We don't have to change too many things now. So when you move out, the enemies will spawn back in. What's going on here? So the despawning actually causes some problems.
I'll be moving on. Could I ever be with you? After all, feel like fever, fever, every night. Fever, fever, when we fight. Fever, fever, in my head, in my mind. I was blinded by your lies. You were never real. You blew me up and broke me down.
Oh, okay, there's an issue. This should take transform dot. This should take position. So this should take a position here because we need to. Wait. It's fine. I'm getting something wrong in the enemy stat script. Can't figure out what it is. Oh, I don't need this. This should just be generate position. Okay, let's try this again. If this works, then we can call it a day. So now let's move it. Let's move the enemies out of the screen, and let's see where they respawn. I mean, use a different weapon. I think it works now. We can now call it a day. Some of the enemies went missing. The edge of the screen. I'm gonna try moving the player around. The enemy doesn't seem to update, you know. When I like, it's only like this, they teleport off only when I check when I pause the game, then they teleport, otherwise they don't teleport. See that? So if I move away, they just disappear until I pause the game, and then you'll see they appear at the side, which is weird to say the least. But you know what, we'll look at this again next stream, probably next week or something. So thanks for tuning in. Okay, let me just make one last edit to the blog post, and then I'll call it a day. This should be here, and then this whole thing should be like this. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. It's nice to see all of you. I'll call it a day now. So in the next stream, we will continue working on the enemy spawner script, and after we are done with that, we will work on because if you look at the enemies page, there's a bunch of stats enemies have and stuff, right? So we'll be working on implementing that as well after the enemy spawner is done. So I am expecting, okay, barring, you know, after we get the enemy spawning working, we still have to you know, in the game that there's like special spawns and stuff, right? So after we get enemy spawning working, then we will have unique spawns. We will work out how to implement that, and then after that we'll move on to the next thing that we want to work on, which will be okay, we'll figure it out. Let's finish up the enemy spawner, and then, you know, we have to integrate it with the curse stat as well. So quite a few things to do. Hopefully within the next 2 months we can get this whole thing sorted out. So in the next week, look out for part 18's video, and look out for an additional particle effect video that we'll release that's related to what we're going to be doing for part 18. So I'm going to call it a day. Thanks for your support as usual. I'll see you all in the next stream.